It's Power Hour LSU.
Man, I'm headed to the field. Terror of the tiger, I'ma always keep it real. Everything gon' get devoured, it's the power. LSU with Carter, it's the power. LSU with Carter, man, I'm headed to the field. Terror of the tiger, I'ma always keep it real. Everything gon' get devoured, it's the power. LSU with Carter, it's the power. LSU with Carter, man, I'm headed to the field. Terror of the tiger, I'ma always keep it real. Everything gon' get devoured, it's the power. LSU with Carter, it's the power. LSU with Carter, man, I'm headed to the field. Terror of the tiger, I'ma always keep it real. Everything gon' get devoured, it's the power. LSU with Carter, it's the power. LSU with Carter.
Let's go. I don't care that there is an ice storm that could wipe all of us off the face of the earth. You cannot take me to another level than I am already at right now because I'm so freaking excited for LSU versus Clemson in the Real Death Valley. Part 2. It's actually part 3 because, of course, we beat them in the national championship game. And one of my favorite things about going into that game this year is LSU is going to have an absolutely positively phenomenal pass rush. Mr. Prince Will is coming to BR, and the reported number is $1.5 million is what he's getting paid to come to Baton Rouge per Garland Gillen. And that actually makes a lot of sense. They had to buy him out of a $500,000 deal. And actually, of course, if you really want him to come over, you got to pay up, give him a raise. And of course, Prince Will is, to me, a fantastic defensive end. His older brother, of course, was a phenomenal defensive end in the SEC for both Florida and then Ole Miss. And what we're going to do, I don't do this a whole heck of a lot because it is behind a paywall, but I am a PFF member. I think everybody should be. These are his statistics from this past year per PFF and his grades. And as you can see, they were pretty damn good. As a guy that started his career at Nebraska, played 2 seasons there, came over to LSU, and he has 1 year of eligibility to play 2. So if he does go down and it's within the 4-game mark, you could actually get him back for another season. The truth is, this was a pretty big one. This takes a lot of pressure off of Jordan Ross, a former 5-star who's coming over to Baton Rouge from Tennessee, that Prince Will already has some pretty good production numbers. You can see some of them over to the right side. He had 11 sacks last year per PFF and quite a few quarterback hurries, 35 of them. So you could see his tougher games were against Monroe Freeling and that good Georgia offensive line. But other than that, these numbers are really freaking good. Now, of course, he played on a defensive line that was pretty good. I mean, Will Eccles, Sanders. You had, obviously, number 4, their version of Harold Perkins, son Doreen Perkins on the opposite side. So, of course, you're coming on over. It's going to be a new defensive line that he'll be playing with. The new defensive ends coach and Kevin Peoples, who is really good at his job, as many of you know. This is an absolutely positively loaded defensive line. Loaded. As we get to as many of your comments today, there is a lot of stuff that I have jotted down over here that I want to get to. But I do want to make this live stream, our normal Wednesday live stream, very conversational. Okay. We say hi to Howard. We say hi to Indexing with Cole. I need some investment help. I do. Because the stocks are up for LSU. Let's go. So much is made about the portal window and which portal rankings you should actually follow. So these are our friends over at Tingle. I don't know Tingle that well, but I do love following them on twitter.com. And take a look. LSU right now, the number 1 rated team in the college football transfer portal by what looks to be a pretty large margin with 2 5-star transfers that they have brought in. And then, of course, you have this where a few days ago, the Ole Miss fans are saying the only on-3 matter, the only rankings that truly matter are on-3's transfer portal rankings, which I do strongly disagree with. I know I know a few people at 247 that actually do these rankings, and I know quite a few people at on-3. I think they both do a fantastic job. But what the Ole Miss fans are saying was the on-3 folks do a better job of factoring in the transfers in and the transfers out, where 247 more so is just grading who you're actually bringing in. And as you can clearly see, LSU is absolutely loaded. They are the number 4 team in the transfer portal, and Ole Miss is actually number 21. So you can see that there is a huge discrepancy between how 247 views Ole Miss and how LSU or how On3 views Ole Miss. So for me, this is an absolutely positively massive transfer portal class for LSU. This is a brand new thing. I understand LSU has used a transfer portal in the past, but this is radically different. It's not going to be a loaded roster of Louisiana natives. This is going to be a lot of transplants. Sure, you're going to have Harlem Berry, and he's probably going to be your best running back, and your best pass catcher is probably going to be Trades Green. You still have a lot of Louisiana flavor on the team. It's just more so a team that looks like quite a few other programs that have more of a national blueprint on their roster. Now, for me, that doesn't change a whole lot as far as how much I love the team, because if these guys are good, who gives a rip? You know, over the past couple of years, this has been a very Louisiana heavy team, from the coaches to the players. But now, as we saw with Indiana, you need to go get these transfers. These are the guys that are the absolute adults in the room. Okay. So now we get to me, the big story, which is, of course, Jordan Seatan. And is he going to Miami? Is he going to Florida? Not Florida, Oregon, or LSU. It looks like those are the 3 schools with Jordan Seatan for me right now. I think LSU did everything that they possibly could and then some. And this has been the major talking point for me throughout the last couple of weeks. And this was intel that was given to me. I do have one big Ole Miss guy that I've been friends with for a very long time. All right. Saw him in Oxford before the season began. He's always been good to me. I've never mentioned his name on here before. And I asked him about Lane Kiffin's work ethic as far as recruiting is concerned. And the reason I did is because, you know, there's always just kind of been this thing out there that Lane isn't really the one that does the recruiting. And you heard this with Trinidad Chambliss and during his time at Ole Miss. Anytime I said anything positive about Trinidad, you know, Ole Miss fans are like, oh, look, unbiased LSU commentator. Then I get their coach. All right, LSU gets Lane Kiffin. And out of the woodworks, you have all these Ole Miss fans that are saying, well, it wasn't Lane Kiffin that actually went and got Trinidad Chambliss. It was Joe Judge. It was this person or that person. And I really don't care. I really don't care. But what I asked this pretty well-known Ole Miss source is Lane a hard worker? Because that was a big criticism of Brian Kelly. The Notre Dame fans were right. Wasn't the most tireless worker. And both privately and publicly, you can see for yourself that Lane Kiffin has worked his ass off over the past couple of weeks. All right, this has been what, 6-ish weeks he has been the full-time head coach of the LSU Tigers. And you can just follow his tweets. If you think they're fake, you can believe that. But we now have 2 different instances in the middle of a transfer portal bonanza where Lane Kiffin flew to Sam Leavitt in Knoxville to recruit him. And now we have Lane Kiffin flying on the MMR plane to go meet with Jordan Seatan in Atlanta. So Lane has worked his ass off. I mean, you could see it for yourself. Tweeting at 2 a.m., getting up at 4 a.m., shouting out all these Baton Rouge businesses. Lane has tweeted out a few of our clips. Lane has done it for all the other LSU YouTubers and even like just LSU Twitter accounts that don't do this. The idea that he was going to come in and just let the recruiting staff do the recruiting was always hogwash. And what the Ole Miss source told me is, yeah, of course, there's quite a few head coaches that don't do every last bit of recruiting, but Lane does get after it on his high horse when it comes to some of the bigger recruits, and just in general, he works hard. And it makes a lot of sense. I'm lucky through the NFL channel and just, going to a few Super Bowl radio row weeks. You talk to coaches that have been in the industry for a long time. They would say the same about Monty Kiffin. They would. Now, Monty was a tireless worker, and Lane seems like that's hereditary. So I give Lane a lot of credit. I understand the issue for me now that he is my coach is, when I would say something very positive about Lane, it was not always well received because, of course, we're LSU and they were Ole Miss. But now that he is my coach, it's starting to become the opposite, where, I don't want to wax poetic about this guy because we built this channel as an LSU fan channel where we do talk about things objectively, or we try to. But this idea that we are not witnessing one of the greatest forces in college football do what he does best, which is drum up interest, drum up talent, put together a product that is going to be unfreaking believably explosive and fun to watch. We're witnessing something truly special. Truly, truly, truly special. Now, are we going to Signetti this thing and win the Natty in 2 years? I don't know. But LSU, on pretty much every single national ranking, is going to be ranked preseason top 10. And this is, to me, the stickiest stat in college football. All right. I'm going to give you one very sleeper SEC team a little bit later in the broadcast that I think made, to me, the most underrated move in the SEC this year. But I tweeted this out last night, and I want you just to look at the data for yourself. This isn't me painting a picture or anything like that. After the stream was over, I wanted to get out what yard per play data was out there for Ole Miss. This is very basic stuff. You don't need a subscription. You can look this up for yourself. There's 2 different sites you can do this for yourself. Go to teamrankings.com or cfbstats.com. All right, there's more advanced stats that are out there, gameonpaper.com. We've had Seatan Galani on before. But yard per play is the single statistic that both marries analytics and just basic counting stats, right? Total yards per game is misleading. I could go into a spiel of all of that. But yard per play to me is the best offensive stat. Ole Miss is the only team in the SEC to average 6.2 yards per play in 6 consecutive seasons in the SEC. They're the only school to have done it. Think about that. 3 different quarterbacks in the Southeastern Conference, 6.2 yards per play in every single season, and 6.4 yards per play in 5 of their 6 seasons. That is freaking ridiculous. But this is where it gets even better. Every national champion since 2017 has averaged 6.2 yards per play or more. Ole Miss is the only school in the SEC to have had 6 straight years of 6.2 yards per play or better. Alabama is the only other SEC school with 5 seasons of 6.2 yards per play or better. Every other SEC school has not had more than 4. All right, that doesn't include Texas and Oklahoma, though, but that was when they were in the Big 12, so it doesn't really count in this context. But Texas did have 5 and Oklahoma had 4. And take a look at LSU. We only had 2 seasons of 6.2 yards per play or better. And I think you guys could figure out those 2 seasons. It was when we had number 5 at quarterback. Okay? But you could see, now that Lane is here, That is the single stat that you can look at for every single national champion. Now, there are others, offensive efficiency, defensive efficiency, which yard per play is a part of, whether you're looking at EPA per play or some of Dave Bartu's advanced numbers. But you guys know, if you're a PHL subscriber, if you have been a part of our Patreon deep dives and all of that, the first thing I look at for every single coaching hire, if you're an offensive guy or a defensive guy, how many yards do you gain or how many yards do you give up per play? It's just that simple. All right. We needed this. And if you're Jordan Seatan, sure. I had a bunch of Oregon fans in my mentions saying that, hey, Oregon's also been at 6.2 yards per play. Great school. I'm a Dan Lanning fan. Go for it. If you want to go to Oregon, go for it. At least you're not going to be in our conference. You want to go to Miami? Go for it. You won't be in our conference. But if you want to be a part of the best conference, kidding, I don't want to get into that. But if you want to be a part of one of the biggest brands to play for this coach in a position where you're going to be the cornerstone of this team, if you're Jordan Seatan, this is the place to be. Okay? Now, what has been the problem? Well, the thing is, you look at LSU and you look at the team and you look at the portal class that they have brought in. Our big question mark has been defense, right? We've talked about it quite a bit. The LSU defense hasn't really been what it needs to be. And then we get into, well, last year our defense was good. Offense wasn't that great. Well, look, the offense was bad last year, but I do think even factoring in the great 2023 LSU offense, which is one of the best in college football history, every other season of offense since 2020, which Lane, when he was at Ole Miss, you just saw, never had a bad offense. Never. You have got to take a look at what the LSU offense has done during this time period since 2020, and it's been mostly bad. It's mostly been bad. And now, even in that 2022 team, where we were still really good, we still had Malik, we still had Jaden and all of them, we had some bad offensive outings. We just did. And a lot of that was because we didn't have an identity. It is just that simple. Ole Miss's offense has an identity. They're a run-first, explosive offense that gets the football vertically down the field. And they play fast. Now, this is going to be the biggest thing. There are 11 wide receivers, and then you factor in the tight ends that LSU has brought in as well. Grace Thomas coming over from Pitt. Grace coming over from from Oregon. If you are going to play in this system, one of the best things you can do, and obviously Winnie Watkins already knows the system, but is be good at everything this offense asks you to do. Okay. It's going to be really hard to crack this lineup. These practices are going to be some of the most competitive practices in the history of LSU offensive football. This is a very ambiguous room that has so much uncertainty. This isn't the most talented wide receiver room we've ever had. Probably not really close to that. But there are a lot of mouths that have proven that they can be productive at a P4 level. Trey Wilson is a guy that's kind of flown under the radar. He is a good, pure slot option for LSU. What is he going to do? And the thing that's crazy about what we have gotten into with the Jordan Seatan mess is we are starting to forget about some of these guys that have kind of flown under the radar. This is a pretty big step in Trey Wilson's career. And he had a great true freshman season at Florida. And they were already starting to, put out there Trey Wilson with some of the other great Florida wide receivers. And over the last 2 seasons, he's played 9 total games. He couldn't stay healthy. Okay. Oh, Buddha shot me a text. Okay, yeah, I'll get with you after the stream, man. Kiffin's massive numbers in his rushing attacks are what intrigues me so much, especially against the elite defensive fronts in the SEC. And I do think, to Brian's super chat here, the thing that's going to be the most important thing is, what is the LSU run game going to look like? Because the reason that the team in 2024, which by every conceivable metric was the best team in the SEC, and as much as Lane was probably thinking about what he could have done with last year's or 2025 Ole Miss's roster, they won the playoff game. Would he have made a difference in the Miami game or not? We don't know. The team that got away was 2024 Ole Miss. That was the team. They were the best team in the SEC. All right. Eye test, numbers, efficiency, they were the best. And they didn't get it done. A lot of that was because of Whit Weeks and Garrett Nussmeier. But that team was so good. Their biggest weakness, though, was that they could not run the football. All right, they had a 50-yard touchdown run versus us, but outside of that, we did a good job bottling up their run game. So you got to look at what this LSU offense is going to look like next year. Be ready for LSU to be a better rushing team. Okay? Be ready. Prince Will, your mama yelling, is a Tiger. I'm so excited. I really am. And I shared what I shared about Prince Lee. I loved watching his older brother. I love when I get proven wrong. And his older brother proved me wrong. Dude can flat out play. Okay? Now, I want to address something about Jordan Seaton. I've gotten some you don't know ball messages about a tweet I sent out about Jordan Seaton, where he was pulling around. A lot of our patrons and Discords and members, you've already seen the film study. And Colorado used Jordan Seaton as a weapon. Like, they used him how the 49ers used Trent Williams, right, where they pull him a lot. And normally, pulls are done by your guards more frequently than your tackles. But in the game versus a pretty good team, I don't know why I'm drawing a blank on who they played. Oh, it was Arizona State. All right. So a good team with good defensive ends. They pulled him a lot, right? He would go from one side of the line of scrimmage to the other. And the explosiveness this guy had at left tackle was insane. So I just tweeted out a clip of how quickly he got out of his stance, going from one side to the other. I had my patented laugh, and I was like, dude, this is just ridiculous, this guy. And everyone's like, well, he didn't block anybody. And I said it in the clip. I said, I know he didn't block anyone. Now, I'm not going to sit here and tell you I'm the next Duke Mayweather or Cole Kubelik or anyone like that. But I was just blown away. Got like 500,000 views on Twitter. I don't have a big following on Twitter or X or anything like that. It wasn't some definitive statement. I was just like, am I seeing what I'm seeing here? So what was crazy was I saw that, and I tweeted out that clip, not knowing that Colorado did it 2 more times in the same quarter, which is a lot on a left tackle. And they were only pulling him. It worked 1 more time, and then the final time it got blown up. So obviously, it's not just me that saw this explosiveness. You rarely run the same play 3 times in a row, in particular if it is your cornerstone left tackle going from one side to the other as a full sprint. And every single time, dude was firing off like a madman. Now, would I like to have seen more contact and more heads getting ripped off? Sure. But in a few of those instances, there was nobody for him to block. So take that for what it's worth. It wasn't an agenda or anything like that. I was just curious because he didn't block anyone. I was like, I don't really care. That explosiveness, you just don't see it. And guess what? It was mostly Colorado fans that was showing me love. Okay? Mostly Colorado fans. Now, what's very interesting, you will see a lot of Ole Miss fans basically pat themselves on the back because they do feel like they dodged a big bullet. And you're going to see this posted all over social media that Ole Miss only lost 4 players. All right, so they lost TJ Daugherty to LSU. They lost Prince Will to LSU. They obviously lost Devin Harper to LSU. And they obviously lost Winnie Watkins, who we were just talking about a minute ago. Winston Winnie Watkins. And Ole Miss fans are saying, hey, if those are the only 4 players we lost, sign me up. It's not the end of the world. And for me, I think it's a big deal. You lost your best pass rusher. You lost an inconsistent, but a guy who was out there more than any other player on your defense, and TJ Daugherty. You lost Winston Watkins. You can't just look at it from an LSU vantage point. You're also losing Stribling to the NFL, and we'll see what happens with Caden Lee and all that. Maybe Caden Lee came back. I don't know. And then Devin Harper is an offensive lineman. He's a 4-star offensive lineman with Louisiana native. That made sense. So it's not as big of a haul as you would have thought as an LSU fan from Lane coming over. But it's still a pretty big deal, right? It's a pretty big deal. And it's one of those things where one of those guys was already re-signed back with your team as a pass rusher. All right, and if you were to look at this just from an Ole Miss perspective, when you say that, take a look at your schedule. You see it for yourself. Louisville's probably going to be pretty good next year. Charlotte in week 2. LSU in week 3. At Florida in week 4. At Vandy, Missouri. At Texas, Auburn, Georgia, Oklahoma. Some pretty good quarterbacks mixed in there, huh? You're telling me a pass rusher doesn't really change a whole lot? It very well could. It very well could. I mean, Prince Will can flat out play. Okay. Now, coming up next, I will give you my final thoughts on this transfer portal class with or without Jordan Seatan. And right after this, we'll get to everyone's favorite segment on LSU YouTube. Power Hour Network listeners and viewers, you might be consuming this content with that crick in your back that you've been trying to get rid of for so long. Take this as your sign today to book your appointment with LabourdTherapy.com. In the Lafayette region, there is no one that you will find that cares more about any different type of pain that you might have than the team at LabourdTherapy.com. Book today. Once again, that's LABORDE therapy.com, or you can visit one of their 5 locations all throughout the Lafayette region. All righty, we get to what has Lane tweeted today. A look at newly signed edge Prince Will. And look at these highlights. Once again, this play, he was unblocked, but John Mateer is tough to tackle. And he gets a big sack there. This was Buddha going viral on Twitter. Lane retweeted him. Describe the LSU defensive line transfer portal class in one word. Prince Will, Jordan Ross, that's blocked in right there. And that's what? Jalen. Crap, his name slips my mind. But what's very interesting is of these 4, I think Seatan Green very well could be the best of these 4. The kid from Clemson, the defensive tackle. Going to be really, really, really solid. All right. So, I texted Buddha, or I told Buddha to reach out. I tweeted out, it is pretty nasty when Seatan Green doesn't make the graphic. It's a good day to be an LSU Tiger fan. Okay. Despite LSU doing all that they could, Princely isn't going anywhere. Drunk Blake Baker says, update. Will Rosenblatt, I've bragged on Will a few times. Where new LSU defensive end Prince Will ranks since 2023. Pressure rate, 98th percentile. Sack rate, 95th percentile. Pass rush win rate, 98th percentile. Pass rush grade, 98th percentile. It's been that good, man. It's been that good. LSU now has the highest ranked transfer portal class in college football history of the last 4 seasons. Crazy, dude. Absolutely crazy. KJ Spider-Man Green gets a Lane retweet. A defensive lineman getting a visit from Sterling Lucas, new defensive line coach. Pretty cool stuff right there. Montre Jackson gets a visit right here from Corey Raymond, class of 2027 DB. And there we go. Lane was not happy with Ole Miss being ranked number 8 in Tom Fornelli's final rankings. Utah at number 6, Notre Dame at 5. They didn't even make the playoff. Kind of strange. Lane Kiffin says rat poison after this positive tweet about Lamar Brown. I love it. George McDonald visiting the Hoka Manville Mavericks football team. Hashtag all gas, no brakes. Le'Veon Bell says the internet has convinced so many people that you deserve the best without becoming better. Congratulations to Kurt Signetti, who almost certainly never spent a game prep week chasing an X around a major city. And Laramie responds, ironic since you're chasing around an X in every post. Man, Ole Miss fans just simply can't get over Lane Kiffin. Trey says, I don't know who young Trey is. He said, man, let's just start the season now. F it. Lane says, spot the ball. Here's Blake tweeting out, LSU fans checking Twitter this morning like, Oh, man. This
he doesn't buy it.
This Kurt Signetti meme is going to live in history. Best work ethic in the game. Lane Kiffin been at the facility since 4 a.m. and now on a plane grinding at 10 p.m. There's no time to rest, baby. Got to get on the trail. Crazy, dude. It's Lane Kiffin tweeting back from his trip to go see Jordan Seatan. So there you go. That is what did Lane tweet today. Now, as we always do, because there are a few extra things that I want to get to here. All right. No extra tweets. Had this argument today. I believe Ole Miss statistically had the best wide receiver core in the NCAA. They're absolutely mossing folks in 2025. And Stribling in particular was so good. Wallace, I mean, they were just a very unheralded group going into the season. And they balled out of control. Let's go to Elmo. I'm Is your name Elmo Demo? Either way, didn't early and I hate how YouTube changed it because I like calling people by their names. I'm gonna call you Elmo. Didn't early enrollment end yesterday? I heard it was extended until today. Could be bad information. It's also one of those things, though, with Jordan Seaton. Let's just say, of course, we want him to sign with LSU so he can be made available for spring football. All right. But what if he's not available? Does it really matter? The answer to that is probably not. Probably not. Now, if he was a quarterback, sure. A little bit different. But he's an adult. He's played a lot of snaps. Yeah, Pegasus, it's weird because this was reported a little bit earlier, and I don't want this to turn into a Trinidad Chambliss channel because we didn't get him. We're fine with the Levitt and Landon and Hassan. So, I don't want to say anything bad about Trinidad because I've been so pro Trinidad. But it is interesting that he is just so dead set on trying to play another year of college football when him being in the first round is a relatively high likelihood right now, especially compared to expectations just a few weeks ago. Dante Moore decided to come back, start that rookie contract as a quarterback. I understand you want more Division I game reps, but it's a little bit different considering you played so much at Ferris State. Now, I say that he played so much. He mostly just played in that final season at Ferris State. So I can understand him looking at it the same way Dante Moore looks at it. Hey, I want to get more game reps before I actually go to the NFL. But what I would also say to Trinidad, and this really comes off as such unfreaking believably hater bias LSU level commentary. But you lost Lane and you lost Charlie. I can understand wanting to come back if your same ecosystem was still there. But you lost the two most important pieces to the operation. Why are you not understanding that you might not be as productive with the new guys as you were the old guys? So it's a lot. It's a whole heck of a lot. And those guys did a really good job of getting you in the right spot. Okay. Now, do you want to share this? Boom. So to the far left, that's TJ Dottery. To the middle, that's Watkins. And to the far right, that's Princeville. So there they are at the LSU facility. Weird times we're living in. Okay. Weird times. But was the Ole Miss wide receiver room better than USC's wide receiver room? I don't know. Was Ole Miss's wide receiver room better than Ohio State's wide receiver room? No. No. But they were still really good. Were they the best in the SEC, though? Which wide receiver room in the SEC are you taking over Ole Miss's last year? Well, to answer your super, it's a little bit of an aside. We'll get back to LSU stuff. Georgia was deep. They did lose Colby Young, but Zachariah Branch, London Humphreys, Noah Thomas, pretty good room. I would say Ole Miss's was still better. Tennessee's wide receiver room, so that's Brandon Staley, Chris Brazzell, pretty good room. I would say it's pretty close. Mississippi State had a pretty good room. That was Brennan Thompson, and number 3, whose name slips my mind, Evans. But yeah, I think it's fair to say Ole Miss had the best room. I think that's fair. Sure. The one that would get brought up the most would be Texas A&M. So that was Craver, Concepcion, and number 3, Bethel Roman. Were they better than Ole Miss's room? I think the most disappointing room was Texas, and then Auburn's room. I mean, Cam Coleman and Singleton, they just didn't have a quarterback. No Lab says Bama with Williams, Bernard, and Horton. I'll be honest, No Lab. My read on Alabama was those 3 are going to carry them through the college football playoff. That was my preseason pick. Bama gets to the semis. But yeah, they were mostly a disappointment outside of Bernard. Horton was just wildly inconsistent. And nobody knows what's going on with Ryan Williams. My hottest take in the preseason was it's going to be crystal clear that Cam Coleman's better than Ryan Williams. And I was right. But yeah, sure. Ole Miss had the best wide receiver room in the SEC. I think that's fair. I think they're definitely the one that exceeded expectations more than anyone else. Okay. Let's see. I'm just trying to see if there's anything regarding Seatan before I get into a few other things. Okay. So I do want to talk some LSU men's basketball. It's been a terrible week. So I saved up a bunch of money to go to Fayetteville. It's my wife's team, the Arkansas Razorbacks, and it's good take her. We had good seats, hotels, and the weather is not cooperating. So unless the weather just drastically changes, we've already canceled our hotel and everything. I'm not going to be able to go this weekend. All right. At least that saves me from watching my team potentially get destroyed by Arkansas, who beat Vanderbilt by 30 at home last night. And we got abused by the Florida Gators. And their role player, Conchar, whatever his name was, looked like prime Luka Doncic. I mean, he just Shea Gilgeous-Alexandered our faces in. And, yeah, we're bad. I mean, we are bad. It is DEFCON 1. This just simply cannot continue. And I understand we're not in the absolute best spending mode here because, we're spending so much on football. But, man, this is just unacceptable, what's going on here with Matt McMahon. But you guys know this. You guys know that, my fandom kind of got into me, even though I have been very critical of Matt McMahon over the past couple of years. Nice guy, sure. And I can't say enough good things about him in terms of him being a nice guy, right? But I would prefer someone very controversial that actually wins ball games. So, whether that's Will Wade or Bruce Pearl or anyone like that. And obviously, Bruce, I'm not saying that those are the guys we should go after. It's just, most of the great college basketball coaches aren't saints. All right. So we're so bad. We're so bad. And look, I get it. we're LSU football first, women's basketball second. That's always been, our thing here. And football, of course, taking up 90% of our channel equity, if you will, in terms of the topics that we talk about. But a lot of you are season ticket holders. My dad, Hal, Mike, who watches. This sucks. This is the second biggest money-making sport that we have in the NCAA. We shouldn't be this bad, right? The barometer for success in this sport is also the lowest in any of the sports. A good talking point is, did you make the NCAA tournament? There are so many mid coaches that have gotten to keep their jobs because their selling point is, oh, we got in the NCAA tournament and we won a game. Dennis Gates is a not great coach at Missouri. He's just not. But he can go to Missouri and say, hey, I've made the tournament. I've won a game. We are not going to make the tournament for the fourth consecutive season under McMahon. It hurts. It hurts. Well, yeah, I'm just saying on this channel, I talk more women's basketball than baseball. We do talk a lot of baseball. Just not as hardcore as some of the other channels. Okay. But with that, Jamie, good to see a lot of our members are in here tonight. LA Mom's in here. Superstar. Let me pull this up. LSU women's basketball. Next game will be Sunday. So I don't know what's going on with the weather, if there's going to be some, rescheduling going on here. The weather experts out there are saying this is going to be one of the worst storms of all time. But we do have a game tomorrow night. It is late, 8 p.m. Central versus Texas A&M. Obviously, LSU women's basketball, they're playing their best basketball of the season. 3 consecutive wins. 2 of those were blowouts on the road. One was over Texas, who made the Final Four last year. And then you have Florida, Arkansas, and Alabama after this one versus Texas A&M. You really don't have a tough game until early February versus Texas in a rematch in Austin. So everything's setting up pretty nicely here for Kim Mulkey's Tigers. All right. LSU baseball scrimmage today. Boys are hitting well. Aren't they having like 4 consecutive games, those scrimmages in a row? All I know is we are about to see Monster Milan win the Golden Spikes. Wednesday to Saturday. I might as well just go down there. I really wanted to see this men's basketball team in action because I could put aside my my hatred for how things are going and just cheer them on like crazy. Derek Curriell's going to win the Golden Spikes. LSU's number 6. Do you believe that? Tell me. All right. I wanted to end the stream talking about just all the different players that LSU has brought in. All right, so basically I'm going to give you a brief synopsis. I didn't say that well at all. Of every single player that LSU has brought in this cycle. Okay. So, first thing I wanted to include is LSU right now. I know we touched on this briefly, but the number one overall class in college football is LSU per the 247 marks. All right. So this is the overall ranking. Now, I understand that 56 commits is a whole hell of a lot. So part of this number one ranking when it comes to this point total is just the raw number of players that we have brought in. So you can see that our 5-star ratio is high, or is lower than that of Texas and Notre Dame and so on and so on. But per 247, this is the best recruiting class in college football, period. It is hard to be number one in recruiting. And I accidentally didn't put that up on the screen. So you obviously know who these high school recruits are. You know this guy is at the bottom right corner, our guy Cooper Patagna. But this is the number one recruiting class in college football. We've talked quite a bit about the high school signees. I wanted to more so focus on the portals. But obviously, I'm a little bit higher than most on Deuce Gerald's, even though it's the fit is going to be a little bit of a transition. I'm a little bit higher than most on Havon Finney, 6'2", lanky corner out of California. And then we get down, obviously, to the signees. We don't need to talk about Prince Will anymore. We've obviously discussed him for this entire stream. Stacey Gage, we spent a lot of time talking about him on Sunday. 5'11", 210. I do like the fact that we have a thicker running back into this room. He's more than likely going to slot into the RB4 role. Dylan Jones, we'll talk about him in a minute, but of course, Caden Durham and Harlan Barrier are still there. Stacey Gage hasn't really played a whole heck of a lot. You know, his best run was a 23-yarder and a 60-0 blowout this last year for UCF. But one thing I like about Stacey Gage is he's not really played a whole heck of a lot. He's not carried the football a whole heck of a lot. So, pretty excited about him. Jamar Jones Jr. from Nichols, I've not really watched him, nor have I really watched Traylon James, the safety coming over from Southern. Does feel a little bit more camp body-ish with Traylon James, but I hope he proves me wrong. Mason Dossett is now officially listed as a safety. This is a guy that's mostly focused in at wide receiver. He was an athlete coming out of high school. And, yeah, you know, there's quite a few of these athletes that turn into, you know, a good safety type of player. In fact, you can make a case the best safety in the SEC was a high school athlete coming out, and that was Bray Hubbard last year. We go to TJ Daugherty. Out of all of these transfer portal players, you can make a case that TJ Daugherty is going to have the highest snap count by the end of the season. 4-star linebacker. We've talked about it plenty of times. The PFF grades aren't the kindest, but this is a guy that's played 150 more snaps than any of the other Ole Miss defenders. There was a lot on his plate, and he mostly delivered. Devin Harper, another transfer coming over from Ole Miss, Louisiana native, has a good chance to play right away. Aluba is someone I'm really high on. Loved his film. Did a Patreon breakdown, members only breakdown bonus on him. You know, his transfer portal ranking I thought was going to be a little bit higher. You can see that Devin Harper has a higher transfer portal ranking than Aluba. So we'll see what Ba could do coming over from Maryland, but he's played a lot of football. Fahim Delane, definitely one of the more interesting players that LSU has brought in. Younger brother of Mansour Delane. Snap counts were weird last year, and that makes sense because Ohio State had one of the best safety rooms we've seen over the past couple of years. He played in 5 games. I always feel sympathetic to true freshmen that play in 5 games because that burns that first year. But you still have 3 more years of eligibility, and you have 4 to play him with Delane moving forward. And obviously, the younger brother of Mansour Delane. If you can't see it in his face, then I don't know what else to tell you. Sean Tompkins, an offensive tackle. Haven't really watched a whole lot of Sean Tompkins football. Same for Zach Grace, other than his snap counts aren't really too high. Physical tight end, H-back type of body, 6'3", 238. Hassan Longstreet, Scott Starzik. We'll talk Hassan here really quickly. 5-star quarterback coming out of high school, 4-star transfer. Comes in as potentially the backup to Sam Levitt. Sam's probably going to be the starter. You're going to have to fight Landon Clark for that QB2 role. And then we talk about Scott Starzik. Ironically, missed the game-winning kick to beat LSU this past year. Very good field goal kicker, though. Get down to Dylan Jones. Thick running back. 220. Had a really good touchdown versus Michigan this past season. More of a plotter. When you think of Dylan Jones, the best case scenario for him next year, and just at LSU in general, is probably, and this sounds like an insult, but this guy was very underrated, Noah Cain. I see a lot of similarities between him and Noah Cain. Winston Watkins. Out of all the transfer portal receivers, he has a really high chance of being the most productive. He knows the system. Slot player, but can also line up on the outside. We then get to Sam Levitt. 5-star transfer, 4-star high school quarterback, the best transfer portal quarterback. We've done multiple film studies on Sam, and those aren't Patreon breakdowns. Those are free, so go check them out. Roman Mothershed is also someone I've not gotten around to really watching, the wide receiver transfer from Troy, 6'4", 208. Darren Stray, offensive tackle coming over from Kentucky. Didn't play a whole lot as a year one player, but at least he joins a room where he knows the offensive line coach. Achilles Wood, 6'3", 289, defensive line transfer. Probably more of a depth camp body type of piece, but we'll see what happens there. Josh Jackson, Tyree Holloway, both wide receiver transfers. Tyree Holloway from a small school in Florida, and then Josh Jackson, of course, from McNeese. We then get to William Satterwhite, backup offensive lineman type, a little bit younger, right? You know, normally when you look at these transfers, you think of them as year 3, year 4, year 5. Satterwhite's still very, very, very early in his career. Could he potentially be the backup center to Braylon Moore? Jaquan Sprinkle. We've talked about him actually a decent amount here. North Carolina Central transfer. I think you're looking at one of the starting offensive guards here. Malik Elsey, a 6'2" transfer wide receiver from Illinois. Jordan Ross, we have discussed him quite a bit, 5-star defensive edge prospect at a high school, 4-star transfer. Made the loss of losing Chaz Coleman at Penn State a lot easier. Jalen Brown, defensive tackle, defensive end type, coming over from South Carolina, began his career at Missouri, then went to South Carolina, and now he's at LSU. You have Mac Mulhern, the new long snapper, and then Malik Blockton. Thick defensive tackle prospects, going to eat up snaps. Roughly the same production in the last 2 seasons at Auburn. Hayden Craig, the new punter, coming over from Florida. Trey Brown, wide receiver. Eugene Trey Wilson, also coming over from Florida. Jace Brown, Rod Gainey. Stephylan Green, who I like a lot. Very underrated transfer portal addition. Ty Benefield, Malachi Thomas, Racing Guillory, and Jackson Harris. Let's go to Moore T. He says, I'm really, really high on Corey Barber, the 4-star wide receiver out of Alabama. Played with your older son in high school. The Baylor transfer, Mason Dossett. That's cool. All right, here's what we're going to do. Next 5 to 10 minutes, I'm going to answer as many questions as we possibly can. If you super chat, we'll keep this party moving. Oh, this is interesting. Nick Curry sent me this graphic. And he put it under our stream. So, Nick, let us know if you're in here. I don't know if you made this or not, but it looks pretty good. We got some Jabari Mack love in the chat. Everybody, welcome before we get to this. Yo, Delay. What's up, Yo, Delay? Jabari Mack. All right, so he's not a transfer, but he is one of the many wide receivers that'll be in this room. 4-star to Destrehan. Has Destrehan ever produced any great players? Any Hall of Famers? I don't know. I don't think they have. Kidding. But yeah, why do you like Jabari Mack? Delay. Oh, that's you, Nick LSU Sports. All right, so this is pretty cool stuff. It is kind of weird to see Philip Wright as the only returning wide receiver. Trade S. Green, J.D. LaFleur. Oh, okay, so purple is a high school signee, and black is a transfer portal. Braylon Moore, Weston Davis, Solomon Thomas, Braden Augustus, Bo Borderline, Brett Borderline. Really good stuff here. Go down. Or go up here. Defense. Looks good, man. Good stuff. I'm going to post this, if that's okay with you. Haven't talked a whole lot about Theo Grace. He is the younger brother of Zach Grace of Oregon. The only thing I would say is Jim Coyley's not a corner. But yeah, but this is just me looking at it the first time. I love this. I'm actually going to print this out. Put it in my office. I need you to sign it, though. Oh, okay. The D for your thing stands for Destrehan. I love it. I love the fact that you're willing to put money down to talk about your Destrahanians. What was the name of and Philip Wright can flat out fly. What was the name of the defensive back for Destrehan who went to Ole Miss? And he didn't really play a whole heck of a lot. He was a lot of fun to watch in high school. Oh, my bad. Okay, I thought that's what the D stood for. But what it was something Anderson. He was a lot of fun, man. Yeah, I think Jim Coyley would be more of like a linebacker or safety type, but you got it mostly right. At least after my first gander. Okay. God, I'm so freaking excited for next year. God, fire me up. Anthony Robinson, that's his name. Are you from Gulfport? Let's go, Gulfport. I love it. Yeah, Jai Eugene's son was on there. But I had no idea what happened to him. None. Zero, zip, zilch, nada. $56 new Tigers coming in now. 56. That is simply surreal. 56. Crazy. All right, y'all. We will be back tomorrow at 6 p.m. Central. So we normally go a little bit longer than this, but I do have something to do for the wifey. Okay. Tevin says Seatan, no doubt an LSU Tiger. I don't know. We shall see. Big thanks to all our top super chatters. BT holds it down. Delay brings the heat, baby. All right. Don't forget about our friends at Labor Therapy and labortherapy.com. Be safe in this cold, icy weather. It is Power Hour LSU. Boom. Tonight, we are doing chicken. Actually, no, we're doing chili. Let's go.